we're going to look at the types of urban settlements that we have. Okay. So types of urban settlements that we have, how do we actually classify urban settlements? All right. We also look at their function. Yes, remember that we said that indeed all of the urban settlements, they are multifunctional. All of them, they've got secondary and tertiary economic activities. They've got manufacturing companies, companies that are making clothes, companies that are making shoes, companies that are making some food. Okay. They also have got what? Tertiary economic activities, services such as salons. Okay. Services such as whatever service that you go to. They even have quaternary activities. All of those, they have got diverse amount of economic activities there. So there are many things that you can do in an urban area. But we can be able to make a certain type of an urban area based on what? Based on the reason why the urban settlement developed. So you need to ask yourself one thing, Rituals. In an area where you are living, how did the area develop to be the way it is? Ask yourself, Uti, why did that town that you live in develop? Why did that town develop? Or why did that city where you live, why did it develop? All right. So basically, that is the function of an urban settlement that we'll be looking at. All right. So basically, we've got three main types of urban areas. We've got settlements, or we've got a central places. We have got trade and transport towns or cities. We also have got specialized towns or cities. These are the three main types of urban areas. Guys, listen to the terms very carefully. These are the types of urban areas, or you can say these are the types of urban settlements. All right. Remember, when we did classification, when we did the hierarchical classification, we were talking about the towns, the cities, the metropolis, the megalopolis, the conurbation, all of those. Those are actually making the hierarchy whereby you are classifying urban settlements. Those were not the types. Those were just classifications of urban settlements. So don't confuse these two things, Rituals. I repeat again, when we did the hierarchical order, where we were arranging the settlements based on their size, we were looking at their size, and we even made a triangle like this to say, we start with an isolated farmstead, we follow with a rural hamlet, and after that we follow with with a village, and after that we follow with a town, a city, a metropolis, a megalopolis, and a conurbation. That hierarchical order, it is a way of classifying. The term is classifying settlements according to their size. All right. This diagram whereby you've got this triangle, it is all about what? Classifying settlements according to their size. But now, when we were looking at the types of urban areas, we are looking at their function. Why are they where they are? Why are they there? That is what I'm trying to say. The main reason why these urban areas are found there. So guys, don't confuse types and classification. It's two different things. So if they say, give the type of urban area that you're talking about, no matter the type of urban settlements, you will never say it's a town. No, you will say it's a central place, or you can say that it's a trade or a transport town, or you can say it's a specialized town. So you're going to look at every one of them and try to identify what is the difference between these types of urban areas. So the first one is known as a central place. All right. So a central place, these are small towns. Whenever we're talking about a central place, it's a what? It's a small town. These small towns, they supply urban goods and services to the surrounding rural areas. This is the purpose of what? Of central places. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are living in rural areas, you know it, Oti, the shops are far away from you. The shops, you cannot be able to just go and buy bread at any time. I lived in the rural areas. I know how it is to live in rural areas. You do not just wake up and say, I want to go and buy some breads and sweets, and I'll go to a spaza shop nearby. There is no spaza shop nearby in rural areas. So basically, there are certain towns. Usually, those are small towns. They are very small. They are not so big. They're just small towns. Those towns are geared towards supplying urban goods and services to the surrounding rural areas. So whenever you explain the concept of central places, they are closer to rural areas. Those are the towns, small towns that are closer to rural areas. You only find out that the town has got only one mall and it has got a couple of shops. It's not that much of a big town. It's a very small town. And its sole purpose or its main purpose it is to supply the urban goods and services to what? To surrounding rural areas. So those were built so that the people from the rural areas, maybe there's a village nearby. Normal, there's a rural area nearby. Those people in the rural areas, they need to come to those towns. They are closer to the what? To the rural areas. Those are known as central places. So when we're talking about the urban goods, I'm talking about the goods that are found in the urban areas because we know that in the rural areas, we do not have any manufacturer. Guys, remember, rural areas, they are only focused on farming and fishing and mining. They only do one function, which is primary economic activities. That is that for rural areas. So there are certain goods that you are not going to find in rural areas. You cannot be able to find soap in rural areas because no one is manufacturing soap in rural areas. No one is manufacturing a bread in rural areas. All of those goods, they have to be bought from the urban areas. So we have got two types of goods or services, all right? Those we've got lower order goods and we also have got higher order goods or services. So the lower order goods or services that we can get from urban areas, the first one, these ones, okay, when we want to explain first of all what are lower order what are lower order goods or services, these are the goods or services that you need more oftenly. All right, these are the goods or services that you need more often. Something that you need each and every day. Usually, it's your food stuff, all right, and your health and your medication. Those are the main things that you will need every day. Things that you cannot be able to live without. So goods such as bread, such as milk, such as getting access to a doctor, getting a service from a doctor, all of those are what? They are lower order goods because you need them more often. You need them. It's not like something that you buy once off. You buy milk each and every day to make some breakfast. You buy bread each and every day to probably make some breakfast as well. You go to a doctor if you've got checkups or whatever health issues. Those are lower order goods. You need them each and every time. All right. But when it comes to higher order goods, it is the opposite. Higher order goods, these ones, you do not need them. It's either you don't need them or you need them less often. So these ones are known as higher order goods. You only need them for a shorter time. Normally, you need them once off. You see, you need them once off or you don't need them at all. All right. So higher order goods, you don't need them or you need them less often. For example, if you want a TV, you cannot tell me that you buy TVs each and every day. No, you cannot buy TVs each and every day. You cannot go and get a massage each and every day in a health spa or something like that. You cannot go and you cannot go and do other things every day. You cannot buy a car every day. A car is an example of a high order good because it's something that you don't need or something that you need less often compared to the lower order goods that you need to consume each and every day. All right. So when we compare now the population that is going to be attracted, or the threshold population that is going to be attracted by these goods. So basically, the lower order goods, whenever we're talking about the lower order goods, they attract a smaller threshold population. So lower order goods, they attract what? A smaller threshold population. Those ones, they are needed each and every day, right? Those ones, they're needed each and every day. So we just need to build kind of a smaller shops, all right? Smaller shops to be able to provide those ones. When we say that they need a smaller threshold population, we're still going to explain what's a threshold population in the first place. But I can just tell you right now, threshold population is just basically the number of people that are required to support a business. All right. The number of people that are required to support a business so that the business can make some profit. All right. That is known as a threshold population. So for lower order goods, or for those goods that you need each and every day, you don't really need too many people for you to start making some profits, because those goods are bought each and every day. And let's just say you are selling bread in your tuck shop, guys. You are selling some bread and some milk in your tuck shop. All of those goods, they are needed each and every day. So your business will always have some support. So you do not need too many people for you to get a profit. When we are saying that there is a smaller threshold population, the threshold population is just basic. We're still going to define it formally later on, but the threshold population, it is the number of people that is required to support a business so that it can make some profit. And for a business to make some profit, for a business that is selling some lower order goods, selling your bread, selling your milk, selling your doctor, they make profit easily because their goods are cheap, right? They need they need a small amount of people to make a profit. But people who are selling cars and TVs, they need a lot of people to buy those so that you can be able to do it, to get more money on them. For higher order goods, we need a larger threshold population. So we need a larger number of people to support the business so that you can start making profit. Imagine you are selling TVs and you only sell one TV per day. You're only supported by one person. Are you going to make a profit? No. So we need a large amount of people to support the business so that they can start making profit. If it's selling some high order goods such as cars, a car selling company, they need more people to buy so that they can be able to make some profit. Otherwise, they won't make as much profit as those ones that are selling the smaller order goods. Let's go to a 10 minutes break, Rachels.
Hey Lapo, I know that you've been enjoying this wonderful video and most likely you've been enjoying watching this handsome face in front of you, but sorry ladies, I'm taken. I just here to tell you that Educate is on the road to 100,000 subscribers by the end of 2025. So please click the subscribe button and click the notification bell so that you get notifications whenever I post new videos. I want you guys to pass. Okay, so if you make my dream true, I reach 100k subscribers, I will make your dreams come true. I will even get you to varsity. I will get you with 7 distinctions. Yes.
Okay, so Charles, as I was explaining to you, I was explaining with him the threshold population in the shops that are selling lower order goods is small, whereas the threshold population in the shops that are selling higher order goods is large. This actually calls for you to understand the term threshold population. And threshold population, in simple terms, I already told you, it is the number of people, no matter the amount of people required to support a business so that it can start making some profit. So if your shop is selling lower order goods, all right, lower order goods such as bread and milk and all of those things that we need every day, you need a smaller amount of people to support your business. So basically you need a smaller threshold population so that you can start making some profit. But when you are selling higher order goods such as TVs, when you are selling luxury things such as any other things that are not needed each and every day, you will need a large amount of people to support the business so that it can start making some profit. And basically, for the lower order goods in central places, we have got several shops as well as services as well. Okay, maybe you find a shop, right, and you find a Boxer and you find just 2 supermarkets alone. All right. And also for the higher order goods, we also have got a fewer shops as well as services. For example, if you go to a shop that is selling some furniture, if you go to a shop that is selling some furniture such as a Louis Home, if you go to such a place, you're just gonna find fewer of those places because you don't need the goods each and every day. But as for the lower order goods and services, you can find several shops and a couple of service service places. Maybe you find a place where there's a barber, a place where there's a hair salon, a place where there's a tailor who's sewing some clothes. All of those are services that you may need to think of. So basically, the central places, they have got all of these higher order and lower order goods. All right. And their main purpose, it is to supply the urban goods and services to the surrounding rural areas. So central places are closer to rural areas. If I can say, for example, the central place that I know is Stillport in Limpopo. Stillport in Limpopo is not a big town. It is just a smaller Yana town, but it is supplying some urban goods to the surrounding rural areas such as Mahlakwena, rural areas such as different places around Stillport. So you're just gonna find out it's just a smaller Yana town closer to a road, and it's just gonna have only one mall and quite a couple of shops, and quite a couple of shops and quite a couple of people. But the purpose there is to support the people in the rural areas. So the central places are those places. So you guys will just try and find out is your town a central place or not. If it's a small town and there are a lot of rural areas surrounding it, then it's probably a central place, right? So all of that is something that you need to understand, Kratos. So the second type of urban area, it is the trade or the transport towns. So there are other towns that develop where the transport routes meet. So the trade or the transport towns, these are the towns that develop wherever we have got transport routes that are meeting. Whenever we're talking about transport routes, we are talking about what? We're talking about roads, rail, we're talking about roads and rail, as well as ship. All of those are transport routes. As long as you find some transport there, you can talk about the transport on water, you can talk about the transport on land, you can talk about the transport on mountains, all of those. So there are certain towns that develop where there's just transport routes. They just develop because there's a road in that place, or maybe because there's a main road. Okay, the central places, remember we said that their purpose is to supply rural areas with some urban goods. But as for trade or transport towns, they are just there closer to transport routes, they are closer to the roads, they are closer to bridges, closer to railway lines, closer to such places. Why is that? It is because whenever you are trading, those are trade towns. That's why we call them trade towns or transport towns. The trade towns, they want to trade some goods. Okay, so they need to be closer to a road. For example, if you go to a town maybe that is processing some coal or that's mining some coal, if you go to a place that is mining some coal, that coal may need to be traded with the companies that process the coal. So to be able to do just that, they need to be closer to a road so that the trucks which will be collecting the coal, they'll be able to just transport the coal to wherever it is being sold to. All right. So basically the trade or transport towns, these ones, they develop where transport routes meet. Why is that? It is so that they can facilitate trade. Let's just complete the statement. So these ones, they develop where we have got transport routes that are meeting so that they can facilitate trade. Let's look at examples so that you can try and understand what's going on here. So we have got the break of bulk towns. So there are certain towns that develop, especially the ones that develop in the coastal areas. You know, guys, that at the coastal areas, we have got some ship that actually transport goods from South Africa to other places. Whenever we want to do some international trading, meaning that I want to sell some goods from South Africa, maybe sell them to another country that is overseas or another country that is international, I can just ship my goods inside cargo. I can just put my goods inside some cargo and then ship it, meaning that it's going to be like transported via ship. So towns that develop near a sea. Usually, whenever we have got transport changes, basically, those towns are known as what? The break of bulk points. For example, the coastal areas, right? In a coastal area, the transport system is changing from sea to land. For example, let's just say now this is the sea. So you've got the sea there, you've got a harbor whereby there are ships and all of that. And then on the other side, you've got the land, right? So you've got the sea and you've got the land. Because it's a coastal area, I'm sure it is closer to the sea. Like it's the land that is closer to the what to the sea. So basically, if a town develops in such a place, we say it is known as a break of bulk town or a break of bulk urban area. It is a type of a trade or a transport town, or you can say a city. Still, it doesn't matter the classification or the size, but basically a break of bulk point, a break of bulk town. It is a type of a trade, or you can say it's a transport town whereby there's a transport change. In this case, what is the transport change? On one side of this area, the transport is via the sea, right? Maybe you are transporting using the ship or all of that. And then on the other side, this is via the land. So basically, there's a transport change between these two. It's known as a break of bulk point. For example, Durban is an example of a break of bulk town or break of bulk trade town, or you can say transport town. So it is just associated with what? It is just associated with people selling goods via the ship or to international markets. So those areas that develop in the coast, especially the areas that are developing closer to the ocean, those towns or those urban areas, they are break of bulk because they are associated with changing the transport mode from being the land to sea, or maybe from sea to land. It depends on where the goods are going. If the goods are being made here on the land here in South Africa and they need to go to the sea, so basically this is from the land to the sea. Or maybe when the goods are arriving here in South Africa, maybe goods from a company in China and coming here to South Africa, they would have to move from being from the sea and they go to the land and we start selling them. So basically, this is known as a break of bulk. This is a break of bulk town. It is just made to trade, to facilitate some trade, to facilitate some trade. We also have got another one known as a junction. So a junction town. So a junction town, it is developed in the intersection of two main transport routes. Usually we are talking about the roads here in this case. Those are the transport routes that we're talking about. So basically, when we're talking about a junction town, whenever you hear of a junction town, the junction town, it develops where we've got two main roads that are intersecting or that are kind of crossing each other. For example, if you've got a main road, I don't know, maybe the N2 and the N4, maybe they are meeting at some point. Let's just say that there's a main road here. This one painted in purple is a main road. And then let's just say that I've got another main road here. So this is another main road. And then the third one is this one that is going up there. This is another main road. So we're having three roads that are intersecting here. And they are making what we call a junction. They're making a junction. So people can develop an urban area there. Because basically, if the roads are intersecting, you know that people might need to buy some bananas as they are traveling. If you have ever traveled by a road, you probably know Uti. Whenever you see roads that are crossing each other, you are probably going to see some street vendors. Okay, street vendors that are selling some bananas or street vendors that are selling some apples, all of that. So that place can actually end up developing into an urban area, right? That place can end up developing into an urban area. So basically, that is a what, and it's an advantageous thing for this place to develop into an urban area because there are many people that are passing at that point. Imagine the people that are coming from this road, the people coming from this road, the people coming from this road and from this road. All of these people, they are coming to meet at this one point. No matter their roads are crossing at this one point. Okay, so all of that, it kind of serves as an advantage to say that there are more people here. So even if they develop a petrol station, the cars can be able to go there and fill in some petrol. If they develop more services, such as maybe if they have a petrol station, obviously they need to have a restaurant. Maybe people need to go and refresh and get a restaurant, and then probably they will need some toilets. And now it starts on becoming bigger. It becomes an urban area slowly but surely. But basically, this urban area will be known as a junction town. It is mainly found where there's an intersection or where two main transport roads are meeting with one another. Then we also have got a gap town. So the gap town is a point. So we say that this one is a point of access at a physical area, right? It's a point of access at a physical area. These ones are the most difficult to build or the most expensive to build, because the gap towns, they are built as a point of access at a physical area, such as a mountain pass. If you go to just a mountain, it is not easy to access the mountain. All right. It is not easy to access the mountain. It is not easy to travel through the mountain and all of that. But if you were to carve through the mountain and you make a road like this road here, this is a road that is made in the mountain. You can start constructing more other things and you can end up having an urban area in a mountainous place. Although we say that in a site, whenever we're choosing the site for an urban area, we do not want a mountainous place. Why were we avoiding a mountainous place? It is because it is expensive to be able to build a road on such a place than building it on flat land. So if you build a road on flat land, it is way cheaper compared to building the road on a mountainous place. But if it happens that your town has been developed at a physical area, such as a mountain, or maybe your town has been developed at a physical area, such as a river, all of those are known as gap towns. So the gap towns, they are just meant to bridge the gap between you and the physical area. So those are known as gap towns, and they kind of serve as a point of access, or they make it easier for you to access a physical area, okay, such as a mountain. Otherwise, you don't just climb to the top of the mountain. And like, imagine, guys, if Cape Town did not maintain the Table Mountain and stuff like that, who will be climbing on the mountain, on the Table Mountain? No one. All right, it's not easy to access that because it's a physical barrier. But because a Smolanyana Cape Town was developed in that place, now we can be able to just climb to the Table Mountain. Okay, we can be able to climb to the Table Mountain using those ropes and all of that, all of those things. So those are known as Cape Towns. They allow people to be able to access a physical barrier. Is that making sense, Christoph?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And then the last ones are the specialized towns or cities. This is the last type of urban areas that we have. They are specialized towns or cities. The term specialized simply means that it has got some speciality. There's something special about it. It is doing a specific function, a specific thing. All right. So basically, we define the specialized towns or cities as the towns that develop because of what? Because of only one main function in the area. All right. So the towns that develop only because of one function or one main function that is happening in the area, because some areas, they do not have multiple functions. Yes, we say it's very urban areas, they need to be multifunctional. I know we say that, but basically in a specialized town, we have got one main function, such as mining, all of that. Okay, so those are known as the specialized towns. They develop because of one main function. So what can be that function that we can talk about? We can talk about mining. Mining is one of those primary economic activities. So there are certain towns that develop due to mining just because there is a discovery of minerals in such an area. For example, Emalahleni Wheatbank is one of the places that I grew up in. That place, it is having coal. That is why it's known as Emalahleni. Okay, it's having coal. So that is an example of a mining town. It is a town that developed because of the coal found in it. So basically, there was a discovery of coal in the area. There was a discovery of what? Of coal in the area. And then the coal miners, they started mining the coal, mining the coal, mining the coal, and probably selling it to Eskom or any other coal-fired power station. So towns such as Wheatbank, Kimberley, you guys already know Kimberley. Kimberley, it is the one that is known for mining diamonds. One of the first towns in South Africa that developed because of diamond mining, because it was rich with those minerals. We can talk about Welcome as well. Welcome as well is also a mining town. In Welcome, I think we have got a gold, if I'm not mistaken, but there's a mineral there in Welcome. But each and every mining town, okay, each and every mining town, it has got its own specific mineral there. But basically, we say that the town developed because of that mineral. Even Johannesburg, guys, how did the Johannesburg region, develop in the first place? The Johannesburg region developed because there was gold, right? If you guys did not know, there was gold in Johannesburg. That is why people chose to settle in Johannesburg. People didn't just say, "Hi, man, let's just choose randomly and say, let's go to Joburg and start living there and more people will come and join us." No. People chose to come to Joburg because there was a discovery of gold. So at first, Johannesburg was a mining town. The Johannesburg region, actually, let's just say the Gauteng region, the Gauteng industrial region, it was just a mining region. But with time, obviously, other industries, they started developing there. So those are examples that you can think about, okay? Yeah. Okay. So now the other town that is specialized with one function, it is a town that is doing education, all right? So a town that is doing some education. So basically, there are certain areas in South Africa, all right? There are certain areas in South Africa that have got a high number of educational institutions, okay? There are certain areas that have got a high number of educational institutions, such as primary school, secondary school, and tertiary schools. So Grahamstown is an example of an education town. Grahamstown. I don't know if you guys know Grahamstown. Where is it found? But it is found in Eastern Cape. I think it's Eastern Cape. So Grahamstown is found in Eastern Cape. All right. This one is an educational town because basically there is a lot of schools, guys. There's a lot of schools and tertiary institutions. So it is a place that is specialized for that. If you go to any other towns, you find out that there are only 2 schools. But if you go to Grahamstown, or it's otherwise known as Makhanda, if you go to Grahamstown or if you go to Makhanda, you're going to find universities, a lot of public schools. Like there are over 35 schools. There are over 35 primary and secondary schools in Grahamstown. And also Rhodes University is found there as well. And more people will go to Rhodes University. Even some of you, I'm sure that you guys applied to Rhodes University as well. All right. That is found in Grahamstown because it's a specialized urban area. Specialized in doing what? In doing educational activities. That is your Grahamstown there. Okay. So it's just having a lot of educational institutions. Are we together, grade 12? Are we still together?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So now let's go and proceed with the other ones. So we also have got those towns that are specialized in industries. These ones are known as industrial urban areas or industrial towns or cities. For example, is Secunda. Secunda is otherwise known as Embalenhle. in Mpumalanga. Okay. When I used to train boxing when I was still a young kid, I used to go in Mbalenhle, and we used to play some boxing near Mbalenhle Mall in Secunda. All right. Still remember that, I think it's in 2019, somewhere around there. But we're not there. We are here in the geography perspective. Secunda is an example of an industrial town. An industrial town is basically a town that develops because there are more industries. It is based on actual industries are just companies that are manufacturing things, right? Companies that are doing secondary economic activities such as manufacturing food, manufacturing clothes, all of that. So it's kind of a company town, right? It's kind of a company town. Okay. So basically, this industrial area, it has got a lot of industry. There's a high industrialization. So you can just say high industrialization here. It's just a high amount of industries. For the education town, you say that there's a lot of tertiary institution. Okay. So you can say that in an education township or in an education town, there's a high number of educational institutions. You guys will write this in full. There is a high number of educational institutions such as primary educational institutions, secondary educational institutions, as well as the tertiary educational institutions. Those are known as educational towns, but the industrial towns, they've got a lot of industries, such as Secunda has got a lot of industries. One of the main drivers for Secunda is Sasol, because basically Sasol is found in Secunda. I think it was found somewhere there in the 19s, I don't know, 19 what, but definitely before 1980 there. Okay, before 1980, basically Sasol, it was found there. All right. So why did Sasol choose to be there? I'm sure you guys know that Sasol is making fuel. It's making fuel as well as chemicals. All right. Yes, making fuel and chemicals. So basically, they found Secunda as a suitable place to be able to make those synthetic fuels as well as chemicals that are used in different industries to fuel our daily machines, right? So many industries had to develop in the Secunda township, causing it to be an industrial town. It's an example of a specialized town or city. Are we together, grade 12? Are we still together?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And then we've got another one, another specialized urban area. The other specialized urban area that we can talk about, it is the resort town. This one is a resort town. You can hear the term resort. The term resort simply means that you're talking about the tourist. It's all about tourism. So it's more geared towards tourism. Tourist town. This one is a tourist town. So basically it's just having a lot of tourists in there. Okay. So it's a place, usually coastal areas. It's a place that is just specialized for what? For tourist attraction. Usually coastal areas are like that because coastal areas, they're closer to the ocean. So there's a beach there. So if there's a beach, there's also fun things to do. So you can be able to create a town from there. For example, this is a Margate. Margate is one of the examples, which is a town in KZN. All right, it's a town in KZN. Its main function is just built around tourism and just recreation. All right, it's just the tourist attraction of the entire KZN, as well as just the entire South Africa as a whole. All right. So basically, this is one example of a specialized town because it is specialized for doing what? For doing one function, which is acting as a tourist attraction. Okay. There are many activities that you can do there. You can hike in the rivers. You can surf. You can do scuba diving. You can fish. You can play some golf. Yeah. And all of those other things. There are even nature reserves. Talk about all of those areas, all of those departments. They're all found in a resort town. So a resort town is based on just tourism and attracting people to come. Then the last type of town that we have is a commuter. So it's a commuter town or it's a dormitory. So it's a commuter town, or you can say it's a what? It's a dormitory town. So an example of a commuter town or a dormitory town is Soweto. Soweto is a town that is found in Johannesburg, right? Soweto is a what? Is a town that is found in Johannesburg. So basically, Soweto, it was basically about labor. It was about transporting people. Yeah, all of that. That it's just designed about. It's just designed to be a residential area. More like, yeah, it's just designed to be a residential area. All right. So Soweto back then in the past, Soweto was one of the places where black people live. All right. This is one of the this is one of the places where black people live. Those black people were working, okay, working in the mines and all of that. So they lived there and they were being commuted to go to work in Johannesburg town and all of that. So Soweto is an example of a commuter town. So the commuter town, it is just based on transport. It's just a residential area. People don't really work there most of the times. Uh, we can just say that it has got some workers. Yeah, it's a town having workers, but they do not work at that place. So they need to always move or they need to always commute to other places. So this one is a residential. It's more of a residential area. So it's more of a residential area for workers, or it's a place where workers are staying, but they do not work there. So they always need to move. That's why you call it a commuter, a dormitory, a specialized town. So these are the 5 different specialized towns or cities that we have. But the 3 main types that we talk about the central place, the trade or the transport towns, and then the specialized towns. Are we together, Christoph?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So these are the definitions that I said I'm going to talk about. Let's just talk about this in conclusion for this session today. I think we've already covered a lot. I'll try to see if I can give you activities based on this. Right. So central places, I've already explained them, guys. With central places are just those small towns, and then they are supplying urban services as well as goods to surrounding rural areas. Right. So basically, they've got shops that sell some basic goods, which or provide basic services to people who live and work on the farms and all of that and all of that. We've already explained that. We've already defined, guys, what the lower order goods are the function or the goods that you need to buy often or buy each and every day. Okay. But as for high order goods, these ones you buy less often or you don't need them more. Sometimes you don't even need them at all. You don't need them on a regular basis. In an example, we've already given them already: bread, milk, petrol, all of these are lower order goods and services. Okay. And then higher order goods, you don't need television, guys. You don't need a designer shoe. You don't need designer shoes each and every day. You're going to just tell me when you buy Nikes each and every day. No, you don't buy Cavelas each and every day. You buy them only once off. Those are high order goods. All right. So I think we already explained all of these. So now I want to explain to you guys these terms that are important for you guys to understand. The threshold population, I already told you guys that in simple terms, it is basically the number of people that are required to support a business so that it can make some profit. So here, the threshold population, it is the number of people, okay, a function must serve in order to be profitable. But to keep it simple, guys, whenever you define it, you say that a threshold population, it is the number of people that are required to support a business so that it can do what? So that it can be able to make some profit. Or you can say it's the number of people needed to support a function or a town. So in this case, you can say the number of people needed to support a functional town so that it can start making some profit. All right. So it's more like telling us, Uzi, how many customers are we needing? Okay. How many customers how many, so all about how many customers a shop or a service must be able to have so that it can start making some profit. All right. So that's known as a threshold population. And then the range. What is the range? When you define the range, it is the distance a person is willing to travel so that they can get a certain good or service. All right. It's kind of how far someone will be able to travel so that they can buy a certain product or a certain service. There are certain things that you need each and every day. Or even if we are far away, we will still walk a longer distance to be able to get to that place. So the range is kind of that average distance that a person is willing to travel. It's more like an average distance that a person is willing to do what? To travel. So that what will happen? So that they can be able to get some goods or services. And then we also have got a sphere of influence. There's another definition as well. The sphere of influence basically is an area where people live or buy goods from particular shapes. Okay, wait, let's see. Oh yeah, it's fine. The sphere of influence. The sphere of influence, you are just trying to see which areas around your business or which areas are being served by your business. Let's just put it in simple terms. So the sphere of influence, you can call it a service area. It is basically the areas that are doing what? That are being served by your business. We can make this understandable using a diagram, right? We can make this understandable using a diagram. Let's just try to see. All right. So let's just say your business is somewhere here. Just try to make a diagram here. Let's just say your business is somewhere here at the center. All right. You are going to try and see which areas is your business serving, or which areas are buying from your business. So if it happens that the people in this area, they are buying from your business, and the ones in this area, and the ones in this area, and the ones in this area as well, in this one, and in this one, you can see that here, these kind of make a spherical shape that is telling us, these people in this area are being served by my business. No matter they are buying goods from my businesses or from my business. All right. So basically, the sphere of influence tells us the number of areas, all right, or kind of the areas that are being served by your business, no matter the areas that are benefiting from a business, no matter the areas that are buying from a business. So that is known as what? As a sphere of influence. The range, remember, we already said that it is the amount of distance that the customer is willing to travel so that it can be able to do what? So that it can be able to get a certain good and or a certain service.